Hi everyone, I'm Gautam aka The Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation and mindset coach, and today we're going to be talking about manifesting an SP who is married and has kids. Now, before I do so, I'd like to remind you guys I am available for coaching, so I offer one-on-ones, courses, and masterclasses. I have a free Facebook group and a paid Facebook group, and last but not least, I also have a mailing list. Now, if you guys need any information on any of those things that I have mentioned, feel free to email me or DM me via Instagram for more information, and I'll be happy to guide you guys on those. And without further ado, guys, let's get to it. So what prompted this video was actually a question from one of you guys in my content suggestions form. So the link for that is in the description down below. So anyways, this person states, manifesting an SP who's married, has a kid, and there's a second kid on the way, having faith that he's already mine, however at times getting caught up in the how and when, plus the SP being my neighbor. So even though I feel your content may have tips and posts almost related to my suggestion, it would be immensely helpful if that be a specific post with your point of view, which helps. Thank you in advance from the bottom of my heart. So even before we sort of deep dive into her question, there's this one aspect that I wanted to address, and this is pertaining to a mindset that is prevalent in the community. So the part where she mentioned, so even though I feel your content may have tips and posts almost related to my suggestion, it would be immensely helpful if that be a specific post with your point of view, which helps. So this is the part. And this is a thing that I have noticed in a lot of questions that I get from people, both from my clients and from the community as a whole. And the reason why I wanted to address is that, in my opinion, and in a lot of coaches' opinion, to be honest, the answers that you guys seek are already out there. Like, your situation is not so unique that the answer isn't out there. When this is a mindset that also makes people compare their manifestation journey to that of others, to put themselves down almost. Like if somebody gets a success story, right, and they read it, they are like, oh, well, this person had XYZ working out for them, or this person didn't have this obstacle that I'm facing. So of course they will manifest it. Why wouldn't they? And they just tend to victimize themselves as a result of doing so. And they shut off any sort of potential answers or the actual solution that they are looking for, even if it's like staring at them right in the face. They kind of close themselves off to those things because it is not addressed to them, and it is not exactly one-to-one for their situation, so to speak. Recently I posted a video with a caption of with a thumbnail saying like, this is the only Neville video you need. Honestly, if you ask me, that is probably the only video anyone ever needs. That 19-minute video that Neville has posted, that video, to be honest, is probably the only video that like many people would need. Like, it got me on my track. And for somebody who's very well versed in manifestation as a whole, which most of you are, in my opinion. I mean, if you're watching this video, you are probably subscribed to many other channels as well related to this topic. You don't just find me out of the blue. But the thing is that I feel that most of you are already well versed in all these things. So you don't need any other video than the one that like I had posted the other day with like a 19-minute Neville recording. To be honest, that's the only one you guys need, because that has a couple different success stories. He exactly says like what you need to do in order to manifest, and he presents multiple different stories, and he talks about the importance of revision and things like that. So to be honest, I think that is pretty much the only video anyone ever needs. Really. Like, your situation is not so unique that the solution to your problem is going to be different. And I think that's what people are thinking, is that, well, my problem, and I'm saying that in quotation marks, my problem is so unique that maybe I'm missing out something. Maybe there's a different approach to this. What else do I need to do? They somewhere refuse to accept that the solution to their conundrum is a simple one. And that is something that is very difficult for many of us to accept, because we were programmed to think that life always has to be complicated, that the solution entails many steps, that life can't be that simple. And that is why we learn the art of conscious manifestation in the first place, is to recognize that, hey, there's not much for you to do in the 3D. In fact, there's not anything for you to do in the 3D, that you will be taken through a series of events and things will unfold in a natural, effortless manner if you choose to focus on the solution, your end desire, that is. So if you were to just do that and just focus on that, that is all you need to do, regardless of quote unquote how complex your problem is, right? Regardless of how complex you think it is, I should say. If you just focus on the ideal realized, the end goal, everything will unfold around that, desire basically. And you don't have to worry and ponder about the when and how, and you don't have to gauge based on your perception of how complex something is, that if there could be another possible solution. The solution to any problem, be it health, wealth, or love, or any other desire in between, is the same. All you really have to do, if you really strip it down in terms of manifestation process wise, all you really have to do is say, okay, what is it that I want? So get clear on what you want and simply just tell yourself that it's already yours. So if, let's say, I were to ask you, okay, what is it that you want? And you were to tell me, okay, I want to be rich and I want to live happily ever after with my partner. Great, it's yours. So what do you say then? I am rich and I'm living happily ever after with the love of my life. There we go. Simple as that. Now, can you believe it? Can you believe it to be true? Does your mind believe it to be true? Right? And how do we tackle that? Through repetition. So every day before bed, you try to feel it real in your mind that, okay, hey, you're a wealthy person who's living happily ever after with the love of your life. And just imagining that, right? What would that be like? Right? How would I feel? What would I be doing? And just immersing yourself and making it fun for yourself and feeling that peace and relief in your mind, and just going to bed and just making that your primary dominant focus, rather than making your focus on, okay, when will it come? How will it come? And things like that. And you just imagine the outcome. Just imagine the outcome. And by imagine, I don't just mean like visualizing or whatsoever, just pondering about it. Like, hey, if I actually have it, what would that be like? How wonderful would this actually be? Like, wow. And just imagining it, like thinking about it from that perspective and just immersing yourself in it, like how a child would do so. Like, think about it that way. Like, if you are a child wanting to be an astronaut, for example, how would a child imagine that? Like, when you were younger, how did you imagine things? So what I'm trying to get to is use that thought process as a frame of reference, as a blueprint, in order to feel your desires real. Make it as simple just as a child would, is what I'm trying to get to. But the ultimate takeaway here is that there is no unique solution to what you perceive as a unique problem. And when you recognize that, your solution to your so-called obstacles, your perceived obstacles, will become so much more easier, as it is in this case as well. Because at this point, like, this person now perceives their obstacles as somewhat unique. Unique enough that she wanted to mention that in the question that she asked, that none of my posts, and I assume that of others, maybe on Instagram or YouTube, didn't apply to her. And that's what she thought. And again, that is not something that I'm saying as a criticism, but it is, again, a mindset that many people out there have. And the reason why I'm pointing this out specifically, and I'm taking so much time explaining this part of the question, is because what this makes you do is micromanage excessively. It makes you micromanage things, and it also makes you very restless to find the so-called ultimate holy grail video or solution or an Instagram post. And guess what? Like, sorry to burst your bubble, there is no such thing. Like, every single thing that you need there is already out there. When people ask me, is coaching necessary to manifest my desires? Absolutely not. Like, the folks who came to Neville's lectures, they attended once a week? They didn't even have recordings to look back at. Can you imagine like how many of us would be able to manifest if the only access we had to was just Neville's lectures and attending it in person? How many of us would actually be able to manifest things? Right? It's unimaginable right now, but thankfully we have access to things on a much greater scale and in ways that those folks did not have. They can't rewind, they can't pause whenever they want to, they can't listen to things while they are driving, right? Because it's so cumbersome to do so, and in some cases you just can't. And what I'm trying to say is that you have access to so many things right now. One, you have all the information you need, and two, all you just have to do is that rather than like trying to find that unique solution, so to speak, if you just make use of all the resources that are available to you, you would do great, to be honest. Like I said, the only Neville video that you need is already the one that I posted, the 19-minute clip one. And if you need a book from Neville, the only book, I would say maybe The Power of Awareness, and that's it, right? I have the Neville's collection, but the ultimate book I would say that anyone needs is really The Power of Awareness. And if you could just read that again and again, I think like it pretty much encompasses all that you need to know, because most people don't really care about the deeper aspects of manifestation. They are more solution oriented. They just want to focus on manifesting their desires, and that's about the extent they really focus on manifestation. I mean, if most people didn't have a SP related problem, most people wouldn't have explored the idea of manifestation, and that is including myself, to be honest. But few people go deep into it and really try to understand it, and really apply it in a way that brings them closer to enlightenment. Like, few people do that. Maybe not even myself, to be honest, in that regard. Like, I try to understand it and get a deeper sense of appreciation for it. But then again, like, do I use it to get closer to enlightenment? Maybe on a subconscious level, but I don't use it consciously for that, to be honest, right? Because I have my desires too. Like, I have things to aim for, milestones to reach, and things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are just manifesting an SP or wealth or a job and that kind of stuff, right? And if you really are going towards it, approaching manifestation in this regard, trust me when I say this, you probably have all the things that you need. Rest assured. Like, there is no unique video out there, or there is no elixir of videos or elixir of the posts, so to speak, that one unique holy grail thing that is going to change your life and that is going to give you the things that you want instantaneously. And I think that is what people are trying to do. Like, hey, I have this very unique thing right now that I'm going through, and how do I get this fast? Is there something else I need to do? Maybe if I do the regular things, I might get it in a certain time period, but I want it like now. What is it that I have to do? And I think like maybe that is also something that's plaguing some of you out there. And the thing that I will say is this: the more natural you feel your desires to be true, the faster it comes to you, right? The more natural you feel your desires to be true, right? Like as natural as like you would feel your name to be right now, right? The faster it comes, right? The faster your desires will come to you. And Neville has mentioned this himself. And the thing is that a lot of people don't get to that point. And that is why it takes a while for their desires to come to them. But if you just focus on making your desires feel as natural to you as possible, make no mistake, your desires will be here in record time. And if you want your desires fast, that is all you need to do. Truly, devote your attention to that. So to just wrap it all up once again, there is no unique solution to what you perceive as a unique problem. I'm saying that again because I really want to drill that into your heads, guys. In fact, like I took a break in between this video because there was like construction going on and there was a bit of a noise. And I reached out to the person in the meantime to say that, hey, I am getting back to your question. And the first thing she told me was, do you need more info other than the things that I left you in the questionnaire, for example? And therein lies the problem. Again, I'm not trying to criticize this person or something. This is the mindset that many people have. Even with my clients, like I've seen that issue before pop up, where they will say a couple of different stories and they will say like, go into detail. And sometimes like many people don't realize this, but half the information that they are saying is actually completely irrelevant. Like sometimes all that matters is that where are you right now, mindset wise, and where you want to be desire wise. Those are the only two things that matters. And if you think anything else matters, it is because you perceive it as such. If you think there's an obstacle, it is because you perceive it as such. Sometimes, yes, like as coaches, like we would ask questions with people and things like that, but that is not to understand the quote unquote complex nature of the situation, but it's more to understand you as a person and what you are perceiving as obstacles. At least that is my reasoning for asking clients questions, right? Like, I don't ask them questions because I want to understand their quote unquote complex problem. I really don't care about that aspect of that. What I really am asking is, okay, where are you coming from? What are you trying to perceive? Like, I'm trying to see it from their perspective to understand their mindset, their thought patterns better, so that I can guide them in a certain way, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people really give too much emphasis to their so-called perceived obstacles because they are convinced that if those things didn't exist, they will get their desires. And while it seems as such in the 3D, it is only you that is standing in your way. So much so that if those perceived problems didn't exist, something else would be in its place. That would, again, quote unquote, prevent you from getting your desires. Why? Because your mindset is always as such that makes you feel like, okay, maybe some things are against you or something like that, right? It is your thoughts that is really against you. In some cases, like you would notice, if a person feels bitter about the world and, they go to workplace A, for example, and then they meet people who are extremely rude to them, unfair to them, unkind to them, etc., right? And then they go to another workplace and then the same thing happens. Why? Because the common denominator, i.e. this person, has things to resolve within themselves. And I really want you guys to know that at the end of the day, it is all you, and don't let that discourage you, but let that empower you, because there's no one to go against, or there's no one to convince other than yourself. There's nothing else to do other than the work within, basically, if you ask me, to convince yourself that your desires are already yours. And so with that said, let's go on to her actual situation right now. So this person's case is pretty straightforward, right? They have an SP who's married, has a kid, and there's a second one coming on the way. And on top of that, the SP is also their neighbor. And that is probably the primary reason why they're getting caught up in the when and how, because you are constantly shown, I would assume, contradictory information to what you want. And, I empathize. I completely understand why somebody would be caught up in the when and the how. And the solution, again, is very simple. It's really to focus on the end goals as much as possible, to focus on your imaginal scenes. And if you're not convinced, let me bring up this example in The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, who also learned from the same mentor that Neville did, Abdullah. And that is why I wanted to bring up that example specifically. He was in a situation, like in Joseph Murphy mentioned a person who was in a situation, and I made a post about this at one point too, where this, I think, German rocket engineer, right, escaped a prison, a Russian prison, and he went to LA. That was his dream, right? And I will explain the story in detail, and married the person of his dreams. And he did the exact same things that he had imagined while he was in the prison, basically. So think about that. In that situation, like in this person's question, they were constantly shown contradictory information. But what did this person choose to do? They chose to focus on the imaginal scenes. The scientist, long story short, what he did was to basically imagine himself being in LA, right? Because he has seen like images of it on a magazine or something like that. And what ended up happening was he would just imagine himself walking through the boulevard, and he was imagining himself with an American girl whom he had met prior to the war, and I'm assuming this war was like World War II. He'd imagine like visiting the stores and riding the buses and dining with this girl, basically, right? And he imagined like driving up and down this boulevard as much as possible, and he made it as natural as possible while he was in the prison. Mind you, this person was in the prison, and he did this. And long story short, at one fine day, like the prison guard accidentally counted him out, and that allowed him to escape without giving any suspicions to the guards, I guess. And he just He just escaped out of that, and along the way people helped him to get to the US, and he ended up there because of a couple, and they happened to be in the LA area, the boulevards, and he was driving through there, and long story short, he married the woman that he was seeing in his imagination, basically. And here's the thing, like, if you remember about Neville, he did that too while he was in the army, right? The colonel rejected his honorable discharge request, and Neville just imagined himself being in New York with his wife and daughter, and he did that for like 9 days, and lo and behold, things shifted. The reason why I bring up those two examples, as unrelated as it may seem in this case, because it's an SP thing, but they wanted to escape prisons and military camps, right? So how is this relevant to an SP situation? Many of you might be wondering, but to me, the way I see it is, the problem here is unfavorable information or contradictory information that is being projected directly on this person's face time and time and again, essentially, right? That is what the problem is, and that is why most likely this person is getting caught up in the when and how, because you are being shown information. And what do you do when the 3D shows you otherwise? You go within. You look in your imagination. You have your imaginal abilities for a reason. You have the ability to conjure up things in your mind for a reason. And rather than getting caught up in the when and how, you create the solution essentially through your imaginal scenes, right? You create, and I'm saying this in quotation, the word create, because we know creation is already done and the ideal reality already exists. So you're supposed to envision the solution essentially. And in this case, what's the solution? Okay, this person is already married to the SP, right? They are in a committed relationship, because this person didn't specify like whether or not they want marriage or whether they just want union for the time being. So let's just say they want union, for example, right? You just imagine that your SP is already living together with you, and whatever you perceive to be the ideal situation, you just imagine that you guys going on a vacation together, you guys doing activities together, maybe dining at a restaurant or going on a long drive or doing things together, doing activities together, maybe laser tag or going on a swim or kayaking, for example, whatever it is. Like, just start imagining what you would perceive to be the ideal reality if there was no limits to it, right? Like, if you had total reign over your reality, how would you design your reality? How would you arrange everything, right? So that's what I would be doing, and that's what those men did too. That's what the scientists did. That's what Neville did. They didn't get any approval. Like, this German scientist was in a Russian camp, and Russia is so far away from the US, right? Far enough from, LA at least, right? And can you imagine like being in a prison and you are imagining being in LA with a girl you just met briefly before the war, so you don't have any idea, she might possibly even be dead for all he knows. But did he bother himself with all those factors? Did he even consider them? No, he didn't. He just focused on it, right? Like, he just daydreamed about it and felt it as natural as possible. And that happened. And that is what I'm saying. When you focus on the solution, you don't need to be focused on the when and the how, because whatever needs to be moved will be moved. And these two men understood that somewhere, that if you just focus on your solution, whatever needs to be moved will be moved. And in this case, in this person's case, if they just focus on the idea that they are now together in a loving relationship with their person, that will happen. You don't need to focus on how and when. There is no need to formalize, strategize, or analyze anything. There is no need for that, because guess what? Like, this person is already yours if you say so. And you just focus on that. Because, mind you, like, Neville was in a very similar situation. Like, he was the one who was married, but he wanted to get married to another person, right? And again, things happened. The bridge of incidents unfolded in such a way that he got his divorce within a week from imagining the union with his SP, and he lived happily ever after with that person, and he had a daughter with her. So my point is this: if you just focus on the solution, things will come. And Neville didn't know what will happen in order for him to A, get his divorce, and B, get him to his union. He didn't know how the events will unfold. Most people make the manifestation process so complicated. They do so by trying to analyze the when and the how. They try to think. And I always tell my clients, like, don't think. Just don't think. Stop thinking. And that's a relief for me, right? I'm like, great, I just have to stop thinking. But for most people, it's the exact opposite. They want to know how and when. And my question to these people is like, what are you going to do when you know how and when? Trying to accelerate the process? Is that what you want to do? Or, okay, so are you going to anticipate it? What are you going to do? Roll a red carpet for the bridge of incidents to unfold? There's nothing you can do to accelerate the process. When you focus on the solution, it'll arrive in the quickest and easiest way possible. This for sure I know of, because I've experienced it. And I can say, okay, if it takes a while, let it take a while. Just focus on the solution. Again, the more natural you feel your desires, the quicker they come. So if I were you, I would just devote all of my precious focus onto that and not worry about the when and the how, because there's nothing I can do there. Neville speaks about the idea of personal impotence, right? You can imagine the solution, but you can't influence the way in which it comes to you, the when and the how, etc. And I always remind myself of that. There's nothing for me to do other than focus on the solution, and I will be led through a bridge of events. And that leads to, well, how will I know if something is a bridge of incidents or not? And I always tell people, if it feels natural for you to do something, if you have a urge to do something, go and do it. And most of the time, these urges may not be in alignment to your desires, may not even make sense from your desires perspective, right? You may feel hungry and you might go to the grocery store to grab a few things, but that might lead you to your desires. You might meet someone there that leads you to another opportunity, and so on and so forth. There was this one incident not too long ago. This was a couple months back. So I saw this guy on Instagram who was close to my age, and he was giving business tips, right? And I really thought, okay, he was really knowledgeable and stuff, and I really thought about linking up with him. And I just thought about it. I just thought about maybe talking to this guy down the line, but I didn't get to it, because I was really busy with other things in life, to be honest. And maybe I would have reached out to him, maybe I wouldn't have, I don't know at this point. But long story short, I had to go for certain immigration stuff, right? And I was applying for my visas and stuff like that. And long story short, when the lift opened on one floor, he popped in. He just popped in. And yeah, obviously I started a conversation with him, and I say, hey, aren't you this guy? And he's like, yes. And I was like, oh, I follow you on Instagram. And our conversation went, and we met up after that. And it was really interesting. And did I know when I went to apply for my visa that I would meet up with this guy? Absolutely not. Could I have anticipated it in any way? No, absolutely not. And that is my point. You never know how the bridge of incidents will unfold. Mind you, I went for a completely different thing and I bumped into this person, right? And things will unfold that way. And I don't want you to anticipate that either. If you're going to a grocery store, or if you're going somewhere, I don't want you to think, okay, will I bump into my SP today? Or will I do this? Or will I do that? No, don't even bother. The key is to go with the flow, knowing that your desires are already done. And that's all you need to do, right? So if I were you, that's what I would be doing, truly. And I wouldn't focus on anything else but that. What would it be like if I were to be in a loving, committed relationship with my SP? How amazing does it feel? And the more you focus on that, the easier you make your life, the less complicated this whole thing becomes. And the last thing I just want to say is that don't make it a complicated process for yourself. Be solution oriented. Don't be problem oriented. A lot of people are problem oriented. Hey, I have this solution, this desire that I want, but I also have these XYZ problems that I have, and how do I solve them so that I can get to my solution, right? That's what you guys think. But that is not how manifestation works. Manifestation works by focusing on the desire itself. You don't have to solve the problems, they will be resolved for you. And in this case, this person should just focus on the union and not be concerned about the when and how. And I completely understand, right? Like in this person's case, there's kids involved, and naturally, any rational person would be inclined to wonder, like, hey, how is this going to resolve itself? Like, I completely understand that. But one thing this person might have realized, and one thing many of you might have also recognized in your unique situations, is that the more you think about problems you don't have answers to, the worse it gets, right? Like maybe not in terms of circumstance, but like mentally, because you're not unable to find a solution, you don't know how, but yet you can't stop thinking about the problems. It just gets worse for you. So why would you make your life harder than it should be, right? So this is why the law of assumption says, or manifestation in general just says, hey, focus on the solution, and that's all you need to do. There's no strings attached, there's nothing else you need to do. Just focus on the solution, we'll take care of it, right? And all you have to do is just surrender to your higher self. Just let it be, right? You don't have to do anything about what's in front of you right now. Just focus in your inner world as much as possible, and whatever needs to be moved will be moved. You will get out of your prison. So that's all from me, guys. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on your bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. Now, we are still doing that 1 month DM coaching giveaway when we reach 20,000 followers on Instagram. All you have to do is simply follow me on Instagram and tag other profiles for multiple entries. Each tag is considered a entry, and it just increases your chances of winning that giveaway. And you can comment it on any post. There's no limits there whatsoever. And I will, keep track of all the amounts of tagging that you guys are doing in the comments. And yeah, so I will put all of those in a random generator, and when we reach 20,000 followers, I'll just randomly generate a winner, and I'll be announcing it both here on YouTube and on Instagram. And there's a giveaway on the Threads page as well. When we reach 1,000 followers, there's a 30-minute call for one lucky winner as well. So we are very close on that one now. So I'm doing these giveaways just to support you guys, and just to say my huge thanks to all of you for all the love and support that you guys have been giving me. This is my way of giving back to the community, and I'll be doing more giveaways as time goes by, of course. So guys, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.